You, as an extrovert, Bart, you like to speak to think. It's just the opposite with introverts. We introverts would prefer to think to speak. So we hate to be put on the spot. You ask us a question, and we really like to think about our answer internally before we give you an answer externally.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to Keep the Change. We're so glad, as we always are, that you're with us, you're joining us, you're taking the time to go to another level in leadership or transformation, whatever it is that really sparks your heart to listen to this podcast. So thank you for that. And we just really appreciate you all. Today's really special to me. I've watched this young lady lead from stages for the last, since I've been with Maxwell since 2013. And her husband was on the show about 3 weeks ago and shared his leadership journey, which was so fun because we haven't broken bread together. We've seen each other and we wave at each other and I think we like each other and we have similar beliefs and similar goals in life. And yet we just never had the opportunity to do this. So for me, we're having a cup of coffee today. And I really want to welcome Antoinette Griffin to Keep the Change. Hi, Antoinette. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bart. It's great to be here.
Oh, my man, it's just what it's all about. I love doing these podcasts. I think we're on number 212 or 213. We've been about 2.5 years because, again, I get to know people. So let's get into that. And Antoinette, you're a leadership coach with Maxwell Leadership. You're a speaker, you're a trainer. Again, you've been on the major stages for Maxwell. And what really intrigued me, because I love this as a mental health coach, that you're a human behavior consultant certified through Maxwell Leadership. And again, you're also on the teaching faculty. So one thing that you had pointed out to me is that one of your specialties is allowing folks to understand how introverts, you've taken a certain niche, how introverts communicate. I'm an off the chart extrovert. I don't know how to shut up. People have told me that. And so I'm fascinated by the thinking and how to communicate better with introverts. So first of all, let's go way back. That's a lot of information right off the bat, but go back, tell us about you, how you got in this field of leadership and how you became a behavior consultant. I'd love to hear the journey.
Thank you, Bart. Yeah, so I'll kind of weave it together since you brought in the introversion type thing. So grew up really extremely shy. Oh my gosh, just extremely shy, low self-esteem, all that kind of stuff. And hated public speaking. It terrified me like crazy. And ended up as getting to be an adult and speaking more at work, started to get more comfortable in the speaking role and started to get out of my shyness, but realized that I was really introverted. A lot of people are shy and introverted. My tagline is formerly shy, forever introverted. So I am true blue introvert, but not shy anymore. But yeah, got certified in Maxwell along with my husband, John, as leadership coach and speaker and trainer. And as you know, a lot of us get our niches as far as like, okay, what kind of leadership and, what do you really want to specialize in? Which I work with all kinds of people. But one of my niches is working with those leaders who are introverted and doubt themselves. Can I really be front facing? Can I really be out there networking to promote my business if I'm an entrepreneur? Can I really be out there giving these presentations as one of the C-suite executives before my entire company? And being in those front facing roles. And so I love to work with leaders like that who feel like that's totally out of my comfort zone and it's not just who I am, but to help them realize that they can lean into those roles while being true to themselves. And also working with extroverts like yourself who are going, I want to better understand these introverts.
So interesting because I always, and John talks about this too, I always used to hire people just like me. So when I ran businesses, normally mainly car dealerships, I would have a bunch of extroverts around. And Antoinette, we had stuff everywhere. We could talk and we didn't finish anything. And then I got a little bit wiser and I started hiring people that were the opposite of me. And the opposite of me is a high I is a C, where they are detail oriented, facts are important, and traditionally introverts. And what I find now, especially in our ministry, and I've got my coaching clients I think about, I probably have maybe 40% of them are introverts and maybe even higher. And what I know about that is I have to understand how to communicate better with those who aren't just like me. But I will tell you that, remember that movie with, was it Tom Cruise that said, "You complete me"? Remember that? Yeah, there you go. I truly believe that the introverts in my life complete me. That if I didn't have them, our ministry wouldn't be what it is. If I didn't have them in my business side of things, then I wouldn't understand as well. So talk to the person that is maybe a little bit more extroverted about some of the needs and how to connect deeply with those that are quote unquote different than them. Although I think that's a pretty strong statement.
Well, I'm so glad that you see that need. And one of the things that I stress to introverts is we need you extroverts as well. Because, oh my gosh, can you imagine what the world would look like if it was just a bunch of us introverts around? And so we need y'all as well. But to answer your question, so I think one of the biggest things, and it's easy to remember once you think of it this way, and that is you, and as an extrovert, Bart, you like to speak to think. So I could ask you a question. I don't care what the question is. And you would be like, sure, no problem. And you would start talking. And it may not be your final answer, but you would keep talking and you would be thinking while you're talking, and you're thinking externally. So you're thinking out loud. And then it's just the opposite with introverts. We introverts would prefer to think to speak. So we hate to be put on the spot. You ask us a question and we really like to think about our answer internally before we give you an answer externally. So it can be really a source of confusion and conflict between introverts and extroverts, because extroverts are like, I'm just asking you a question. Why can't you give me an answer? And the introvert's going, why are you putting me on the spot? I don't appreciate that. I would like to think about my answer before I give you an answer. So that's one of the big ones.
Yeah, that's so good. I've got one of my clients who is deeply an introvert, and I really want to understand him, Antoinette. I believe your skill set is communication. And I see it so often happen within small business that people just don't communicate very well. And by that, I just want to make sure that I communicate better so that I can be the best I can be for them. And so it's almost a different language. I've got one of the leaders that I work with, incredibly good leader, and he definitely has to process through things. And I have to make sure that I give him enough information to be able to process through that. So I don't want to go off this topic of introvert. I want to make that a big part of our show today because I think people need to hear this. But as an introvert, what is it that you need? You mentioned a little bit previously some things you need from the other party, from an extrovert. But what does an introvert need to process to make sure that they feel that they are at their max capacity in communication? Now, I didn't write this question down and send it to you. So let me restate that. What do they need to do to feel like they're at their max capacity in communication? What I'm hearing from you is introverts need to process through. What I'm hearing from you is extroverts think as they're talking, as I just did. So what is it though? And I'm really curious about this. how best does an introvert communicate with themselves and others? And what can a extrovert do to help with that? How can they help support that? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
a lot of times the extrovert doesn't know, they don't know. They're not like, okay, I don't know that you need to think internally, that you need to process. And so it's, an introvert's responsibility to say, hey, can you give me these questions ahead of time to think
Mhm.
into it? Or you ask me a question, do I want to go do blank? Or can I go do blank? For me to be able to say, let me give me a day to think about that and then let me get back with you, rather than, well, let me think about it and then you have to come back to me. No, I should lead in that situation. I would say, give me some time to think about it and then I'm going to get back with you. So that is an introvert who is showing leadership. They're taking the initiative to get back with that person. So the responsibility works both ways. It's not just extroverts need to learn how to communicate with introverts. Introverts need to let extroverts know, hey, this is how I prefer to communicate. And then also the boundaries are so important. I was just on a call with somebody today who said, I'm an introvert and people are always coming in my office and I want to be helpful, but it is just wearing me out.
Mm,
Developing those personal boundaries so that person can show up better to people because they haven't worn themselves out all day with nonstop conversations with people, but to
mm,
really guard those personal boundaries. Because, like I said, a lot of times extroverts, they're not thinking about the introverts' personal boundaries because they're fine with constant communication.
mm.
But for the introvert to say, in order for me to have the best energy with you and for me to be at my max capacity, as you said, I need to have some alone time first and then for me to show up my very best.
That is so good. I don't think I ever even thought of that. What does it really mean in terms of personal boundaries for an introvert? When we talk personal boundaries, again, I don't understand. It's another language for me. Uh,
Well, so for instance, there's all kinds of personal boundaries. So, for instance, you probably have friends that you know really well that could just show up at your door. And probably as an extrovert, Bart, you would probably be like, oh, yeah, come on in. Or, a friend that, last minute, hey, let's go here. And an introvert, that would be like, oh my gosh, don't show up at my door
mm,
without advance notice, without an invitation. Don't just show up at my door unannounced. Introverts also just even like, for instance, phone calls or texts, just not wanting that constant communication because it gets them drained, but to allow them some space, physical space, time space, conversation space. So sometimes it is literal space. Sometimes it's just, hey, can we just quit talking for a moment and just kind of be comfortable in each other's silence? But let's be together, but we don't have to be talking all nonstop.
mm.
So introverts have different levels of personal boundaries. Some of them can go for longer spurts without have needing that alone time, but that is a characteristic. It's just not always the same for every introvert.
We've talked about the big part of what you do is communication and helping businesses communicate better. We are in a state right now in terms of business where communication seems to be, you and I have done some work together on these cultural scorecards, as they're called. And one of those scorecards reveals 10 different items, behavioral situations within a company. And one of them is communication. And I get that. And I think about my current clients, all of them have communication issues. Matter of fact, Antoinette, I might be wrong, but I'm always looking at things from a 20,000-foot level and I move pretty fast. I'm believing that the number one thing that we can do in any small business, family, church, whatever, maybe big business, is improve communication. So I feel okay about this question because I sent it to you in advance. I didn't give you a lot of time. I gave you about 10 minutes, but I'm going to ask you this question. Tell us about what you feel is the state of communication in families and businesses currently. I mean, I gave you my opinion. What do you feel about that as you look at your client base and who you serve? And then the second part of that question is, do we need to correct it? And if we do, how do we correct it?
So it's interesting how we call ourselves leadership coaches and trainers, and that we specialize in leadership. And like you, I have realized over the years that it really is, people know really how to lead. It comes down to they don't know how to communicate as a leader. And maybe it is a situation where they're extremely task oriented. And so everything's about business and everything's about the task to get done. And they forget that, oh, I actually need to communicate and relate to this person as a human being rather than just a human doing. And I think that's a big part of it when it comes to business is that whole, let's talk business. We have a common goal here, and forgetting how important the personal aspect is. I think
Mhm.
that's the big one in business. And then in business and in families or personal situation, it's just so much where we've got that tunnel vision of this is the way I communicate and not realizing that other people communicate differently. And if I really want to connect with them, that I need to adapt my communication style. Do I have to? No, but my chances of connecting with them are much greater if I adapt my communication style to their style. It's not about being someone that I'm not. I'm just adapting to get better results.
I found one of the people that I met at Maxwell Leadership was Joel Manby. And I've talked to Joel probably 10, 15 times. We at one point are looking at doing something with his book, Love Works. And Joel, if one doesn't know, if you've listened to this podcast, you already know this, but what a guy. What is Joel, man? For one thing, he's brilliant. And I've noticed a lot of introverts are very bright. I know the introverts on my team are much brighter than I am. And again, they complete me because of that. But Joel was a CEO for Hershon Family Entertainment. He was a CEO for Saab Motor Company, North America. He had a big leadership role with Saturn. So because of that, we have some dance in our past history. And he wrote a book called Love Works, and it's based on the love chapter in the Bible. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not boast, love does not envy. And I love that book. And it talks about love as courage. And what we believe when we're telling the story, he tells it so much better because he's such a good communicator about his topic. And he says it with such calm and love. But when we use the word bring love to business, most people say, oh, blah, 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 blah. That's not a business word. And yet, what I really believe that his book is telling us is how to communicate and connect in business. And again, he's a great communicator, but he had to adjust because of the fact he's not the raw guy. He's not the talker, but he's brilliant. He could give you any data you wanted, and he had a soul, like he still does. He's got a soul of an angel. He's just a great guy. So having said that, I want to flip to you, and you can address that too, of what your thoughts are with that. But I want to ask you, you were super shy, you said. And you've moved past that, obviously, by speaking on stages with 3,000 plus people. And I guess my question is, how did you overcome that? Like Joel overcame to be able to lead major companies. How did you overcome that to really get out of that shell that most introverts would say, oh, no, I'd rather die. How do you do that, Antoinette? And I know I've seen you on stage a number of times, and you're fantastic. How do you do it?
Aw, thank you, Bart. I appreciate that. I get asked that question a lot. I really do. In fact, I just got asked that question a couple of days ago. So it was definitely a process. It surely definitely was a process because I didn't think it would ever, I would ever feel comfortable doing that. When I got to be a young professional, outside of college, I ended up joining Toastmasters, which I'm a firm believer. You too?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Toastmasters was, oh my gosh, really amazing for me. And I highly recommend that for anybody. It's an international organization. So, any of you watching and listening to this podcast, check out a Toastmasters because it can really help you. And that's what it's there for. And so being in Toastmasters, but then also I remember when I was in college, I had this turning point my senior year, and I can't explain it, but it was very interesting because I specifically remember it was a turning point. So I was majoring in management and I was in this cohort with three other guys. And so there were all these little cohorts in the class, and we had to work on a specific management project. And then at the end of the semester, we had each cohort had to stand up and give their presentation of their management project. And so there was this guy in my cohort, and I won't say his first name because he may be watching your podcast,
Of
Bart, and
course he
he
is.
would know. So anyway, he was this guy that was very confident and very cocky. And I used to think, wow, if I just had half the confidence of this guy. And then it was time to give the presentation, and he was going before me, and he stood up in the class and he was nervous. And I could tell he was nervous because I had been with him all semester. So I knew what he was normally like. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's actually nervous. And there was something about his nervousness that felt freeing to me going after him, going, wow, if this guy is so confident and yet he's so nervous, then what do I have to be afraid of? And so I stood up there and I was like more confident than I had ever been in front of a group of people. So that was a turning point. And then, of course, like I said, Toastmasters, but then mine was numbers of people. Like I would say, okay, well, if I'm speaking in front of 20 people, I can do that. But boy, I could never speak in front of 50. And so I would just gradually increase those numbers. And it was a process, it was getting to larger and larger groups. And then a lot of it for me is just, okay, you're stepping in the role, Antoinette. You're on stage. So now you're stepping into the role of a person who speaks on stage. And so
Mhm.
it's almost like a play, or it's something that becoming a person, I'm becoming that person whenever I'm doing that. So that's been my process.
So how does one become that person? That's like they're scared. They don't know how to do it. How do I want to? Maybe no. How
Yeah,
do
yeah,
you?
and I think it is that process of, once again, joining an organization like Toastmasters, where you start getting your practice, or a speakers club. Maxwell has some members that have speakers clubs. That same thing, they're helping people become better speakers. And then Maxwell has that as well, as far as speaker training and people working up to give their speeches. And so, anybody that's interested in that, see Bart if you're interested in the Maxwell leadership team. And it's one of those things to just kind of start speaking in front of a small group, and then just working up your numbers until you feel like, okay, it's all a matter of perspective. 20 used to be huge and now 20 is small. And
Mm,
then 50 used to be huge and now 50 is small.
that's so good. So I'm thinking in terms of what Toastmasters did to me. And I remember I ended up being the president a long time ago of the Santa Cruz chapter of Toastmasters when I first started. And the thing that I remember when I first started was that they would tell you how many ahs you had. Right? Remember the ah counter? I hated the ah counter. I thought, why did they do that? And then later on, I understood why they did that, because I learned how not to do that. Antoinette, I'll never forget. I was with Les Brown and Paul Martinelli at Maxwell Leadership. And I'm thinking I'm all that, right? Because when I first started, I was that speaker that first watched Tony Robbins, and with all his energy, that was the thing that I thought would work. So in all these meetings I did within my business, which was automotive, dude, I was on the table. I was full of energy. I was all that. And people loved it. I mean, they absolutely loved it. There's some people out there now that are that kind of speaker. And I look at them and say, dude, you're a fool, right? I've grown up. And I think Roddy helped me do that. But anyhow, I'm in this room and I'm looking to the left. And I'm in the middle of my talk with Les Brown in the room. And I heard Martinelli say, stop. And, oh my gosh. I remember it today. I was so mad that he interrupted my talk in the middle of it because I wasn't looking to the right. And guess what? I never do now. I never not look to the right. And I was just over here. Didn't even know it. Very confident. Really didn't know what I was doing, but still confident. And when he interrupted me, I was just so mad at him for that. It took me about a year to recover. But what a great tool that made me, that's that. I got to always look to the right. I got to scan the room. I got to make sure that I'm sharing my story with everybody. What's the most fun that you've had as a speaker? When you think about it now, with the growth you've had, that you now teach at university, what's the area where, in terms of getting out of that comfort zone, of doing that, of growing through Toastmasters, what's that place where you say, yeah, I really enjoy doing this? Is it Maxwell, or is it one of your other speaking gigs? Where do you have the most fun and get the most out of your speaking?
Well, with Maxwell, it's always a great group because it's a very positive, right? Very positive audience to speak in front of.
Yeah.
Speaking in front of a large group of introverts is difficult, even though I'm talking about introversion.
Interesting.
And they're coming to hear me speak about introversion, because introverts, will sit there.
Yeah.
And so you don't get that energy.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I have to create my own energy.
Yes.
So it's one of those things that I've had to learn over time, because then you start questioning yourself, going, oh my gosh, are they really not enjoying this?
Yes.
So it's fun to speak in groups where, I can, tell some of my stories as far as, embarrassing things that have happened to me, and laugh about them. Whereas years ago, I would have been too embarrassed to say it, or I certainly couldn't say it as humorous as I do now, because I had a difficult time laughing at myself. And now it's gotten easier to be able to do that, which is always nice.
There's a codependency piece in there, Antoinette, on my end of things, right? When I'm on stage, and you got it, when it's in front of Maxwell people, there's a lot of extroverts in the room, right? And if they're not, they are for those 3 or 4 days. So they've gotten the energy of the group. So you never have any problem with people buying in and having fun and all that. But I hear you. That is so funny when there's a group of introverts and they aren't expressing themselves the way that I would. Then it's like, oh my gosh, am I doing a good job? Am I a very good speaker? I've been there many times where I thought, I don't think I did a very good job here. And you say it like that, it makes so much sense. But it also makes me feel like there is a way, if I'm speaking to a group of introverts, whether it's a small group or it's a big group like that, there's a way to communicate and teach that gets their attention. So I kind of want to go there a minute. We got a few more minutes, but how do you, even though you're not getting that feedback that maybe I would need as a codependent, how do you know that you're really clicking with them and you're speaking to them in the way they hear? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I like to speak about is, the facial expressions. Introverts a lot of times have a thinking face. It's called a variety of things, but we'll call it a thinking face.
No
It's
bitter beer face. We won't call it that.
yeah, yeah. It's that unpleasant face that looks like I'm bored or I'm mad or I'm disengaged. And, that's one of the things that, like, when I'm talking to introverts, I'll talk about the importance of our facial expression.
Mm.
And I'll even say, like, for instance, I'm looking at a lot of you out there now. And, I can't tell, or, are you just thinking, or are you like really miserable? Because, my perception is my reality, and so I'm perceiving this unpleasant facial expression and being aware of, okay, how do I have more of a curious expression on my face? And so things like that will usually, get them warmed up, going, oh, yeah, I am told this a lot.
I love your YouTube channel. I think it's
So,
fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your content on your YouTube channel. If you don't mind, share a little bit of the content on the YouTube channel. And then I've got a couple other great questions for you.
yeah, so I started it back in 2017. So, but when I started it, I was only doing one video a month. And then finally in 21, I started doing two videos a month. And then about a year later, it's been about 2 years, 2 or 3 years now, I started doing a video a week. And so
Mm.
it's all about communication, confidence, body language, but everything's from an introvert's perspective because I am an introvert. Some of it is specifically for introverts. Some of my videos are for people who are wanting to better understand introverts. Like this week's video is 7 things to never do to an introvert if you want to improve your relations with them. And then some of it's just can apply to anybody, things like body language, how to look more confident, how to look more approachable, how to have good body language on Zoom calls, what's the difference between a compliment versus flattery, what's the difference between a reason and an excuse. So it's all has to do with communication, whether that's nonverbal or verbal communication.
So good. So good. So you're a graduate with a bachelor's in, you have a BA, right? From University of Texas. So
Yes.
what was your degree in?
Yes, it's a BA in management. So it's not a
Hmm.
business degree in management. It is a liberal arts degree in management because I didn't do good in my business classes, but I did great in my liberal arts classes.
Right on.
And it was the 80s, so management was the way to go. So that's why I got a liberal arts degree in management.
Are you a football fan?
No, but I will wear the clothes. Yes. So I will wear the UT stuff. And now that I'm in Georgia, I'll wear the Georgia stuff. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've never really gotten into football.
that part of it. It's funny because I'm from Ohio originally, and Ohio State played Texas on the first game of the year a couple weeks ago. So that was my Saturday morning. I don't spend a lot of time on Saturday mornings watching that, but that was an epic game between number one and number two. So it was fun.
Yes.
Ohio State won, but that's a different story. So, yeah, so are you still teaching at the University of Texas?
Yes. So I have taught a class ever
Awesome.
since 2012 at University of Texas. And it's all for introverted business professionals. So it's communication strategies for introverted business professionals. And I used to live in Austin. So it was an in-person class, moved here to Georgia, and then COVID hit. So the class switched to virtual. And now we have people that attend my class that are from all over the world. We have
Amen.
people that from other countries that will come to this class because it is virtual. So it's not for University of Texas students, but it's for their extended business program for business professionals.
Yeah, what a great niche. That is so great. And thank you for that as an extrovert. I just want to say thank you so much. I'm going to go back and listen to all those videos.
Oh,
Because
thank you. You will help my count. Yes. So it's youtube.com and then it's my name, Antoinette Griffin, for anybody who
cool.
wants to know. Yeah.
And you're writing a book. Tell us a little bit
I
about that.
am, yeah, the Becoming an Audacious Introvert. So it's a book for introverts, and it's all about how to show up boldly, how to show up with confidence, whether it is work situations, whether it's through body language, personal interactions. And it's written, really, the target audience is for millennials. And the reason why is because most of the people who come to my classes and watch my YouTube videos are the millennial age introverts. And
Mhm.
so it's for any age, but it's really geared towards the millennial age introverts.
Oh, that's great. And I will tell you that if you're an extrovert, and because I've heard it many times, I can't communicate with millennials these days. Well, you have to understand your audience, right? You can't speak in a different language than they can hear. So again, as you're listening to this, and we know a lot of folks listening to this are in automotive, get on that, watch that, understand how they communicate so you can communicate with them better. I know, again, we referred to it a half hour ago, and a lot of my clients are introverts. If I don't know how to communicate with them, I'm never going to be able to serve them and help them reach their max capacity, and neither will I. So I think that's just so important today. It's our responsibility as communicators in the world that we know how the other person communicates. We can't go into somebody else's country and think they should speak English just because we speak English, right? So
Oh,
we've got to know how they communicate. 83%, 83% of the folks on this planet are, what are they? Extroverts or introverts? They are introverts, according to DISC, right? That's
yeah. However, DISC is not a true introvert extrovert sign. So there are actually, for instance, some D styles that are introverted and some S styles that they may be shy, but they really are more extroverted. So yeah, it's not a true accurate version, although a lot of times it is the C's and S's that are more introverted.
Yes. And whether the number is 58% or whether it's 72, the bottom line is there's a lot of folks that are not exactly the way we are, and we have to know how to communicate and to communicate effectively. Antoinette, thank you. Thank you, sister. I appreciate you so much. You had mentioned the other day when we were talking about some business ventures that I'm part of with you, that you had prayed over me, and I just want to thank you for that. Thank you for your faith. Thank you for how you lead in faith. Thank you for being such a great ambassador here on the Keep the Change channel. And again, I love your work, and it's been really fun getting to know you at a deeper level.
Thank you so much, Bart. This has been absolutely wonderful, and I so appreciate you having me on your podcast. Thank you. I'm honored.
How do people get a hold of you? We've already talked about your YouTube channel, but tell them about how they can connect with Antoinette Griffin.
Yeah, so the company is Griff Development. So griffdevelopment.com, GRIFF development.com is my website. And then I'm on LinkedIn under this name, LinkedIn, and then you know how to get my YouTube channel.
Okay, well, this will definitely serve many people. So thank you so much. Please reach out to Antoinette. If you want more information about Maxwell Leadership, as Antoinette said, let me know, and I'll give you a little tip and a referral so that you can get your foot in the door with that organization. Thank you, Antoinette. God bless you. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Bart. This has been absolutely wonderful.
Yes, it has. Appreciate you so much.
Thank
God
you.
bless. God bless everybody. Thanks for joining us. Share this one. This is a good one. We'll see you next time on Keep the Change.